Well, hello, I'm Jean Stoddard, a mindfulness meditation instructor, and I've been teaching through the Salt Lake County Senior Centers for over a year. I started at Draper, ended up at Riverton, West Jordan, even Sunday Anderson before COVID hit. So now I'm online and teaching this way. And actually, it works out to learn meditation in this format. So I'm glad you're here. This is an introduction to meditation. It will happen again in the Salt Lake County system in February. And it's a 6-week course. I'm actually giving you the first class today, and hopefully you'll like it. So whenever I begin meditation with those at the Senior Center, I ask everyone to do a quiet minute. So wherever you're sitting, maybe you're lying down, whatever fashion you're in, I'm asking you to close your eyes. And you can use this time in many ways. You can be prayerful, you can do affirmations. It would be a wonderful time to say those. You can simply be quiet. You can use it as you will. I have my own intention for it, but so the way to do it is you set yourself up comfortably in your chair, maybe hands on the lap. You're going to go eyes closed, and I'm going to set a timer for not yet. Find my what am I looking for? Looking for my clock. Here it is. The timer is going to start now. Okay. So I would ask, did that seem long or short? In meditation, we usually do it for longer than that, at least 10 minutes. And in my PowerPoint presentation, I'll explain why 10 minutes is an important number. So I don't know what brings you to meditation. I've dabbled in meditation since I was a teenager, but I'm talking dabbling, and didn't take it seriously until about 2015 or 16 when a therapist suggested it to me, and I resisted it for a very long time. But eventually it began to, I began to enjoy those moments of quietude. In the beginning, it's not that way. And then as time went on, and I really appreciated it, I began to start teaching it to others. And then I got certified as a mindfulness meditation instructor through the University of Holistic Theology. So that's sort of my credential, so to speak. And this first meditation class is basically going to get you set up with a breath anchor. And I'm going to do it through sharing a PowerPoint presentation with you. So let me try to get to the share screen. And here we go. And I want to be on this slide right now. So if you sign up for this class through Salt Lake Community Senior Centers, you are taking what's known as Mindfulness Meditation Practice, or MMP. Now, I like to do some color coding with things. So, in other words, the reason that this is green, mindfulness, that's the word I use, green, because way back when I was doing the senior centers, I had these buckets. C for concentrative mind, green for the mindful mind, and red, for the egoic mind. And this color coding it has helped me teach this practice. So M, green for mindfulness, and blue, meditation practice, that's sort of an active concentration. Now you don't see the red yet. That will come in the very next slide. Okay, so let's get a definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the awareness that arises through, now isn't this a good description of concentration? Paying attention on purpose in the present moment. And it's done non-judgmentally. Our ego is very judgmental toward others, but a lot of times it's toward ourselves. And one of the things you might even think about meditation is, no, I can't do it. I'm really bad at it. My mind goes crazy. I can't get still. Now, first of all, that's a judgment against you for the practice of meditation. But I want to reassure you that over time and initially, the success of meditation is not that your mind is still. It's knowing how unstill your mind is. In the beginning, your mind, you're going to notice how busy and ruminating your mind is. And every time you notice, that's successful meditation. So don't worry about being still at first. It takes time because this is a practice. Now, that quote by Jon Kabat-Zinn, that was mindfulness is the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. That man, the reason meditation is so popular in the United States is because of him. He taught for at least 40 years of his career at the Massachusetts Medical Center, Boston area, his mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And that's been offered through the Salt Lake Senior Centers, the county senior centers in the past, mindfulness-based stress reduction courses. So Jon Kabat-Zinn, when he was in college, went to a Zen presenter's evening discussion. There were only 5 people in the audience. But Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was in his 20s, going to MIT college, he was a scientist learning, what was he studying? Molecular biology. But when he heard that lecture, changed his life, changed his mind, said, I want to do that, whatever that meant, which ended up being him creating this mindfulness-based stress reduction program. Now, it is in all kinds of hospitals, schools, all kinds of things. It has grown over the years. So the reason meditation's popular is really because of him. Yes, it's true that many Eastern philosophers came to the United States in the late 60s and 70s, and we owe much gratitude to them. But this American, Jon Kabat-Zinn, took the gauntlet, he took the torch and he ran with it. And it's because of him that meditation's so popular. Now, let me give you an experience with mindfulness. This is mindfulness exercise, brushing your teeth. And the next time you have to brush your teeth, today, tonight, whenever, I want you to do it mindfully. And it looks like this. You brush your teeth. but your mind's thinking about your to-do list. Right? You're brushing your teeth, but, oh, I got to go to the grocery store, and I can't forget my mask, by the way. And, oh, by the way, do I have my mask? Is it dirty? Do I have to buy a mask? Anything, your mind is not, your hands are moving, but your mind is not brushing your teeth. Okay. Now you might notice that then, oh, Jean said I need to brush my teeth mindfully. So then you bring that mind back and you brush for a little while until you think, I got to leave in 10 minutes and I better stop this and all that. Again, you notice, oh, Jean said just brush my teeth, and your mind comes back and you brush. So brushing your teeth is concentration, right? Concentrate. The wandering mind, we'll call it the ego. It's worrying, in this case, about a future that hasn't happened yet. My to-do list, the thing I have to do in 10 minutes. It could be thinking about the past, something that happened yesterday, but it's not in the present moment. If it were in the present moment, you'd be concentrating. And then the mind that brings it back is the mindful one. Jean, thinking. And it brings it back to brushing the teeth. Now, this is just a generalized idea of what meditation is like. And I'm going to give you, now the anchor for the mindfulness exercise was your teeth, right? You taste the toothpaste, you make sure it hits every spot. You know, that's concentration. Well, in meditation, we concentrate at our breath because it's always present. There are other places to concentrate, and I'll teach those in further classes, but today I will give you a breath anchor. But before that, I want you to know that meditation is scientific. Jon Kabat-Zinn was a scientist, by the way, and other scientists took notice. And a lot of the scientists now do brain scans on meditators and non-meditators. And this particular study, meditation experience, is associated with differences in default mode network activity and connectivity. So as you see, there's scanned pictures. There's some with a control group, some with meditators. There's a baseline. Look at the differences in the baseline, by the way. And then during meditation, and then, so a couple of things I want you to notice about this is, one, the words in red. Remember, let's go back to our color scheme, egoic. Scientists use this word, default mode network, meaning if you're concentrating, brushing your teeth, and really into brushing your teeth, you're concentrating. You're a fabulous tennis player and you're in the zone, you're concentrating. But when you're out of that activity and you're no longer focused in a concentrative way, your mind defaults. It defaults into thinking. Lots and lots of thinking. And a lot of the thinking doesn't even connect with the thought before. And a lot of the thinking isn't even true. But scientists give it that word, default mode network. And the whole point of this study was that in meditation, they could tell that there's differences in the default. The parts of the brain that default into more fight or flight. And the meditators and the non-meditators, they showed differences through the scans of that activity. So one is the study's interesting. And if you come to the meditation class, I always post this type of material to be sent out to the participants. And then the other is just to know that word, default mode network. It's the way scientists call this brain that ruminates. Now, you may, we're senior citizens here. So is this actress, Goldie Hawn. So you may know her from other, her movies, her television show, Laugh-In. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? But when she was the young Goldie Hawn, when those Easterners came to the United States, she took up transcendental meditation. It was about 1972 that she took up the practice and continues it to this day. Now, back in 2011, or excuse me, 2001, September 11th, sorry. Well, September 11th, when the towers were falling down, Goldie Hawn thought, oh my gosh, I want to do a give back to the world. What should I do? Children. I'm going to give back to children. I'm going to teach them how to meditate. And so she got scientists together, other bigwigs, so to speak. She created a foundation and then helped create something called the Mind Up program, which is taught in many Colorado schools. Goldie Hawn has a home in Colorado, and then also in Canada. Canada does it quite a bit. So she has created this program to teach children maybe what mindfulness means in their life and how to be mindful. And it's a wonderful program. Now, in her book is this quote from a Richard Davidson, PhD. And he says this: by sitting and mindfully breathing for 10 minutes a day in as little as 8 weeks, you strengthen the part of the prefrontal cortex involved in generating positive feelings, and you diminish the part that generates negative ones. I mean, you could go back to the study. That's exactly what they're talking about. So the prefrontal cortex is more of, if it were all about the brain, which it isn't totally, but the prefrontal cortex is more of the mindful aspects, the calm, aware situations. Now, the fight or flight, the amygdala, some of these very small parts of the brain that are more, the regions are older in our brain, and again, they're fight or flight. What is being said here is the prefrontal cortex expands in a positive way, and like the amygdala and other parts of the brain that are the fight or flight, they begin to shrink. Not that you don't want to fight or flight when a tiger's in the room, but we are living in a stressful world, and we generate a lot of fight or flight in our life just based on anxiety and stress. And so this practice of meditation helps shrink the parts of the brain that are more anxious and engaged in fight or flight. So that's the 10-minute promise. And by the way, that's always the homework, to meditate 10 minutes a day for this very reason. Now, of course, meditation comes from the Buddha. There's others too. I mean, meditation goes way back, but we give the credit to Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. And there's a fabulous documentary that you can even watch on YouTube. It's a PBS documentary on the Buddha. Very interesting life he lived. He was princely and almost hedonistic princely as a young man. And then later, of course, he shifted into something quite mindful. Now, what he says is, I teach only suffering and the transformation of suffering. Let's go back to our color coding. I teach only suffering. We would call this in modern language the ego. I teach you about your ego and the transformation. Mindfulness is a transformation of suffering. Okay, so the Buddha was talking mostly about the mind, that our mind suffers, and there's a way to transform it, where you're not paying attention to ego, you're paying attention to mindful. And so a snow globe is a fabulous metaphor. I usually carry this one with me to all the senior centers. And as I shake it, you know, you see all that swirling, swirling, swirling snow. And then, of course, it settles. So there's two minds at work here. And because it's the holiday, I've got a new one. I like this one too. So the swirling snow, of course, is our egoic mind. And then the stillness that follows when the snow sort of stops, that's our mindful mind. So think of that metaphor. You know, that's a metaphor to even think about in the future. That the whacked out mind, the crazy one, the one that's always going, we'll call it egoic. And then when we have moments of clarity, awareness, stillness, that's our mindful mind. Now, there are spiritual aspects to meditation because the Buddha taught this. He taught the Four Noble Truths. Again, color coding, the truth, we'll give it the green, of suffering, that our minds suffer. He understood there was a cause for it. He understood an end for it, and there was a path toward the end of it. And his path is called the Noble Eightfold Path. So there's a right way to understand things, a right way to think, a right way to talk, a right way to do things, a right way to even have a career, the right way, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So I am not Buddhist, but I truly appreciate what the Buddha did. It's profound what he knew 2,600 years ago, because it really is compatible with today's psychology. So I get my understanding of the Buddhist practices mostly from this book, The Heart of the Buddha's Teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh. He's still alive. I believe he's 96 now. He's from Vietnam, Vietnamese Buddhist monk who came to the United States. He was one of that wave that came over during the Vietnam War, because he didn't side with either side in Vietnam, and neither side wanted him in their country. But he's written hundreds of books. I mean it, over 100. Some are really small, but he's prolific and gentle, a very gentle soul. Unfortunately, he has had a stroke in the last 5 years, so nothing further is coming from him in terms of books or even speeches, but he's lovely, lovely person. And of course, so we're talking about the Buddhist experience. Some of you may have a Jewish spiritual traditional background, and a lot of your things come from the Ten Commandments. Now, of course, Christianity has borrowed from the Jewish tradition of the Ten Commandments. And if any of you are Jewish and you have more guidance in your sacred texts, I'd love to know about that. Now, I'm more from a Christian background, so I have an awareness that Jesus taught things like love God with all your heart and love thy neighbor as yourself. He was almost referring back to those 10 commandments and narrowing them down to those two profound teachings. And there's other traditions, spiritual traditions in this work. Hinduism and Buddhism, at least with meditation, are quite co-joined. As far as religious teachings, I'm not familiar with them as much, that really at all, or Islam, nature religions, irreligious affiliations. It really doesn't matter where you're coming from. I say to you, meditation is for all. It's for all. Now, we call this mindfulness meditation practice. And here's Serena Williams, right? Fabulous tennis player, was coached by her dad and her sister, both by her dad at a young age. And those girls practiced and practiced and practiced. And Serena's, world-class winner, but she did not get that way without practice. Now, practice has two meanings. There's a verb form, like Serena Williams, an activity or exercise in which a skill is repeatedly done to improve. So yes, this is mindfulness meditation practice, and it is a verb. Every time you sit down and do it, you get better, and you do it by practicing 10 minutes a day. And then number 2, the word practice as a noun is the actual application or use of an idea or belief or method, right? So the idea is meditation, and we're practically applying it to our life in hopes of this method changing us. And you do it long enough, it's life-changing. A lot of what I learned was from an author named Lanny Mulrath, who wrote the book, The Mindful Vegan. I love that book. You can teach yourself how to meditate using that book. It's 30 days of reading, each day a new chapter. And then she also gives you a link on how to get her audio, which is a guided meditation. That comes free with the book. So honestly, I taught myself how to authentically meditate using that book. Now, these are her acronyms from the book: position, anchor, intention, and remindfulness. And I want to tell you that position is a very important feature of meditation. And I do have a video on it, a posture video on YouTube. You can simply put my name, Jean Stoddard, in YouTube, and I actually have 5 videos right now, but the posture one, you'd want to watch at first. Because posture is important. We all come to meditation with our own aches and pains. We don't want to create more harm for ourselves. So this video will teach you how to not create harm for yourself. Mostly, you sit with your feet flat on the floor. Your calves are vertical. Your thighs are horizontal, and your torso is upright and vertical. But we're not frozen. We are, dignified. It's a dignified position with hands on lap or cupped together. And that's usually meditation position in a chair. Now you see that there's a pillow behind my back. I'm a rather short person, and so a pillow behind the back helps me reach my feet comfortably to the floor. Now tall people, they have the converse problem. They need more of a harder cushioning if their chair doesn't fit them right, harder cushioning on the buttocks area to raise them up. The main idea is you don't want your knees higher than your hips. That creates problems. So there you go, about position. Now, we're going to learn to anchor at our breath. And I'm going to do that with you now. But there are other anchors, and you will learn about them in our classes. So there's a way to anchor at the body and the emotions together. That's the powerful part of meditation. And by week 4 or 5, by 5, I think, we get into the body and emotion scanning. So you can anchor at sound. A lot of people listen to songs, music during meditation. That is an anchor. You're anchoring at your ears. But the primary anchor is at the breath. And we're going to do meditation at the breath right now. So again, get in meditative position, feet flat on the floor. Calves are, I always get these mixed up. Calves are vertical. Thighs are horizontal, and the torso is vertical. Now close your eyes. We're going within. We're going within. And as a matter of fact, let me stop the share for a moment so that you can see my face. Now, I'm going to have my eyes closed, but if occasionally you need to look at my face, go ahead. But what I want you to do is just more be inside, paying attention to this idea of anchoring at the breath. Now, there are several places where you can anchor. One of them is on the upper lip, but not everyone feels the breath coming out of the nose. The only way because their faces are designed differently. So the only way to know if this can be an anchor for you is to breathe really hard out the nose and see if it hits at your upper lip. So go ahead and try that, breathing out through the nose, kind of hard, and seeing if it hits there. One way to discern that better is maybe take your hand, you might open your eyes for this, and put it under your nose, and then see where that breath hits. If it hits your first finger, then you're likely to feel it on your upper lip. If it hits the second or third, and oftentimes it does that for people, then that just means the air is going out. The face isn't created the same way as someone else's, and you will never feel it hit the upper lip. So just discern if that's a possibility for you. And if so, that's one place to anchor. I know some people anchor there because they can always feel the air out, but if your mouth shape is different, you'll never feel it there, so don't worry about it. Now, another place to anchor is at the nostril tips. Remember that your nose is like a straw, and two straws, and the air gently goes in and gently goes out. Gentle in and a gentle out. And by the way, it's natural breathing. We're not doing yogic breathing here, anything different. It's just natural breathing. So over time, it takes a lot of time to feel that breath at the nostril tips. We're just talking the tips, where you might feel it on the in-breath, ever so gently. And even less, it's even harder to sense at the out-breath. Now, over time, meditators become very good at sensing the in-breath and the out-breath right at the nostril tips. But if that's really frustrating you today, or you're just not feeling it, that's okay, because there's other places you can discern the breath. We'll go further up into the nostrils, up by the sinuses. And notice on the in-breath that it's cool. Right? There's a coolness to the air. That's because it hits that sinus area. And then on the out breath, one could call it neutral, or you might not even notice so much anything in terms of temperature. It's just mostly on the in breath that you notice the cool hit of air. And because that's so distinct, many people like to anchor there. They call that their breath anchor. So again, we have 3 so far as opportunities. The upper lip, if your body is shaped like that, the nostril tips, or the sinuses. Let's travel further down the nasal passage into, let's open your mouth. Because some of you might have colds, or you might get a cold and you just can't breathe through your nose. So obviously you're going to breathe through your mouth. So take a few breaths in and out of the mouth. You obviously feel the cool, right? Cool hitting the saliva. Do you notice even the cool all the way back to the back of the throat? You might notice that, you might not, doesn't matter. You're paying attention, you're being mindful. So that's the way that you have to breathe when you have a cold or some other condition that blocks the nostrils. Now that air comes in and hits at the back of the throat called the pharynx. And that's where the 2 passages come together, the nasal passage and also the throat passage. Air goes one way into the lungs, saliva goes another way into the stomach. And there's some flap that flips back and forth that lets that thing happen. Now, there is a point in time with your mouth open and breathing where you have to swallow. And when you swallow, there's no air coming in, not through the nostrils, not through the mouth, and you know that very clearly when you're anchoring at the mouth. Now, for me, I don't like to anchor at the mouth. I might have a cold, but I don't particularly like to say my meditation anchors at the mouth, because when I swallow, I have this reaction like I'm underwater. It doesn't feel good to me. Now, it's true I'm still going to breathe through the mouth, but maybe my attention is better focused now lower to my chest. So notice, go back to nostril breathing. That's the way we want to breathe traditionally, with our mouth closed through the nose. You know, the nose is filtering the air for us. And then, of course, your chest will expand or contract. Expand and contract. On the in-breath, it expands. On the out-breath, it contracts. So the chest may be an area where you want to anchor. It's another air anchor point. And then, of course, we can go lower. As the chest expands, too, the diaphragm is pushing down. And it feels as if our stomach is expanding and contracting. I don't really know the physicality of what's happening there, but you can notice an expansion and contraction below the lungs in the abdomen area. Any of you who've ever done yoga, this is a preference for people because they learn to pay attention to that area. And so if that's an area that you want to anchor and call it your breath anchor, that's fine. Now, one way to feel the lower abdomen best is if your tongue is at the top of your mouth, behind your upper teeth, at the soft palate, but still with the mouth closed. And for some reason, that position really helps me notice the expansion and contraction down at the abdomen. Someone in the Riverton Senior Center class pointed that out to me, and it feels true, that tongue position helps. And I truly keep my tongue position there through all of meditation. So you have your anchor possibly at the abdomen, or at the chest, or at the mouth if you need it, or at the sinuses, tips of the nostril, or upper lip if your face is created that way. Technically, there's like 6 breath anchors. And now you decide. Play around with them for the next 2 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. I'll go silent. Okay, you have your breath anchor now. And it could change over time, but that's simply all you really need. If all, excuse me, I meant to do a share, one last share. If all you ever did, if all your meditation ever was anchoring at the breath, remember that 10-minute promise? You're building the prefrontal cortex and shrinking amygdala and other things. But a reminder that there's other anchors. Now, that pair thing, position, anchor, intention, that's where the 10-minute time frame, 10-minute promise comes in. There's something called loving kindness meditation that I will teach you in the future. And then really, we're always having an intention to connect to our mindful self. We know this self pretty darn well. It's the one that speaks to us. But the one that really has the wisdom is this one. But we always have an intention to glean wisdom. So just pair, position, anchor, intention, or mindfulness. This is the last point I want to make. There's 3 minds in meditation, as I said, a concentrative, an egoic, and a mindful one. You concentrate at the breath. Egoic mind wanders to a future that hasn't happened yet or the past. Mindful mind notices and reminds you to come back to your anchor. Gee, thinking. So that's a word that Lanny Muirath coined, but it's this, doom, over and over. You're being reminded to come back, right? So, yeah, concentrative, egoic, and mindful. And we'll get into that the next lesson. So I want to thank you for coming. I hope I gave you something. I think what I gave you at least was how to meditate, how to start this practice. You don't need me now. In one sense, if all you did was anchor at your breath anchor for 10 minutes a day, you will find a powerful experience. You'll have a powerful experience. It takes practice, but over time, the power will show itself to you. So thank you for coming. I hope to see you in a future meditation class through the Salt Lake County Senior Centers. I believe my class will start in February. So thank you for watching.